The off-season is officially over. Welcome back to NASCAR Now, everyone. Mike Massaro here, excited to kick off the 2014 season. It has been an eventful winter for sure, setting up a season of change. Coming up, the championship formula has undergone a major overhaul. Why this year's chase, especially the season finale, will provide drama like never before. Jimmie Johnson enters the season in familiar territory as the defending champion. We sit down with Jimmie as he sets his sights on a 7th title. And speaking of hallowed numbers, the 3 car is returning to the Sprint Cup Series. Why Austin Dillon is embracing the opportunity.
NASCAR Now is presented by AutoZone.
There have been many headlines this offseason, but perhaps none that have created a buzz like NASCAR's bombshell announcement late last month. The championship system now places increased emphasis on winning as the chase takes a tournament-style approach, complete with eliminations along the way.
Well, we're thrilled. I mean, obviously, we put a lot of time and effort to come up with the right format that rewards winning and gives us an opportunity to have our version of a playoff that is that's going to create a lot of big moments and give our drivers and teams a chance to shine in a bigger way.
And we know from experience that the more complicated something is to understand, it's harder to follow. And if you want to build something for folks to follow, you have to keep it as simple as you can. I mean, it still has some complexities to it, but on the surface, it needs to be simple.
And it is fairly simple. Here's how the chase changes break down. The field expands to 16, and the top priority for getting in is now wins. 4 drivers will be eliminated after chase races 3, 6, and 9 until just 4 drivers remain championship eligible at Homestead. Another big change is the elimination of single-car qualifying runs everywhere but the Daytona 500 in favor of group qualifying. And let's not forget the car. It has too been modified for the season, which gives Allen Bestwick and our roundtable a place to start.
Well, many things have changed for the 2014 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series season. The configuration of the cars aerodynamically has been altered, new rules for qualifying, and of course, new rules for determining the champion. We'll talk about it with our roundtable panel. Far end is Ricky Craven, middle is Andy Petree, and seated closest to me, the new Hall of Famer, is Dale Jarrett. Let's start with the cars. Mr. Crew Chief, the biggest changes on the cars and how they'll affect the race teams are what?
Well, they're going to have a little bit more downforce, a little more drag. They're going to have what's called 0 ride height. They're not going to have to pass inspection when they come back off the racetrack after qualifying or after a race. I think that's going to help a lot because it'll open up a lot of things that they can do setup-wise. What's been happening in the past is you have a certain ride height you have to go through tech, and you have to come back that same way after the event. The engineers are smart enough to figure out if I want that car to run on the ground on the track, we can do it. We can make it happen. And then they had to do setups that made it come back up for the inspection. And now they don't have to do that. I think it's going to open up a lot of different things, spring-wise, shock-wise, that's going to be helpful in competition. And also, I think you'll see some different combinations between organizations and teams.
I think that the 0 ride height is very significant. And it's an example how NASCAR keeps the teams off balance, and they're very good at that. A change, and in this case, there's more than one change, but a change can take the momentum from an organization that's figured out a certain profile or a certain attitude of a car, and that disappears, and then a smaller team may be able to capitalize because they're a little more nimble, a little more willing to think outside the box, and early in the season they're rewarded for it. So it's, I think, going to create a great first 2 or 3 months of racing in NASCAR.
Yeah, and I kind of look at 2 things together. Andy pointed out about the more downforce. So they've got some more spoiler there. It's going to create a bigger weight. So the one thing the drivers talked to me about was, and they complained about, as far as the competition went in the racing, they weren't able to, on the, especially the bigger tracks, 1.5 miles and over, as they approached a car, they may be quite a bit faster, but they really couldn't get to that back bumper to do things that we used to do, loosening someone up or being able to get there to make fun and have a good time and pass and things like that. This is going to allow that to happen. So what they tell me with what they've tested so far. They're able to do that more, which is going to be more entertaining for the fans to watch. And actually, the drivers are going to have a better time. They didn't like the idea that they couldn't get there either.
Yeah, more entertaining. Fridays should be a lot more entertaining. The knockout-style qualifying. I'll borrow NASCAR President Mike Helton's phrase that he didn't necessarily say about this, but work in progress. I think we're going to need a little bit of time for teams to figure out the strategy before we really see it blossom.
It's really going to be interesting to see. I love the idea and the concept, and I think once it is kind of perfected, then we'll all benefit from that. But to see how these teams go about it, how the drivers approach this, having to make multiple qualifying efforts and runs, because you usually just got a couple of attempts at it, you know, in a practice session, and then you went out and made your 1 or 2 laps, and that was it. Now they're going to be there for quite a while and just thinking about going fast and making the most of it. It used to be pretty simple, right? You just go out there, run a lap, see how it stacks up. And it's not that simple anymore. I mean, you're going to go out there, it's going to change the way you practice. It's going to change the way the crew chief sets the car up and the tires. You're running 1 set of tires for 3 sessions in a 1.5-mile racetrack. They're going to give up speed as you go through these sessions. I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think there's going to be some hurt feelings along the way. When somebody gets in front of somebody or gets in the way of a good lap, I think you're going to see probably some tempers flaring on pit road after some of these sessions.
Not intentionally. We can only hope.
Well, I don't see it as intentional yet, but I see it happening.
It could be worse than hurt feelings. You remember how Tony reacted to being blocked last year? I mean, this has the potential to create a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of animosity, but it also brings, as Dale said, a whole new element to the sport. From a driver's perspective, imagine being in that next group, fast enough to go to the next group, but you're in Atlanta, where the tires wear out in 2 or 3 laps. So you've got to go out and lay down a lap on wore-out tires, essentially. And then you have Pocono, Michigan, California, where the aerodynamic aspect comes into play. So you've got to be strategic, where you leave pit road, you try to catch a car to get that pull down the straightaways, but not so much that it disrupts you through the corner. This is going to be a thinking man's game.
So that's the appetizer. I'm going to take a break here, come back and talk about the main course for this year, the change in how the champion is determined. That's next on NASCAR Now.
Thank you, Allen. And as you alluded to, there's plenty left under the hood. The competitive format, it isn't the only thing changing. There are plenty of new faces and new places, too. And
all these little tweaks and changes to the chase, this one seems a little bit more of an overhaul. Do you ever get the feeling that this is all just an attempt to stop you from winning?
It's crossed my mind, not gonna lie.
will the new chase format really derail the 48? Hear what the champ has to say as we sit down for a conversation as Jimmie prepares to defend the title once again.
NASCAR Now is presented by AutoZone. For the auto parts, accessories, and advice you need, get in the zone. AutoZone. And in part by the new season of Wicked Tuna. Go fish or go home. Only on National Geographic.
And here he comes, champion for the 6th time.
You are the 2013 champion. Yes! Thank you, guys. What a race team. Thank you, my man. Thank you. What a spectacular job this season. Great season, everybody. Proud of everybody. Very proud. You're the best out there, buddy. You're the best out there.
Really hard to argue with those words of Chad Knaus. Last season, Jimmie Johnson won his 6th title in 8 seasons, fending off Matt Kenseth's championship bid. Johnson is now just one shy of joining NASCAR royalty. The record of 7 championships was first done by Richard Petty. He won his 7th title in 1979. 15 years after his first title, he beat Darrell Waltrip by just 11 points. Joining him with 7 titles in 1994 was Dale Earnhardt. 14 seasons after his first, he blew away the field that year, beating second-place Mark Martin by 444 points. 7, it is perhaps the most hallowed number in NASCAR, which is why within minutes, perhaps seconds after clinching the 2013 title, the focus surrounding Jimmie Johnson shifted immediately to 2014. Questions regarding his legacy became the order of the day. To get his thoughts on that very subject, Ricky Craven sat down with the champ.
It's clear that you love to be challenged.
Oh, yeah.
And every driver presents a different challenge. Is there one amongst the crowd that brings the best out in you?
You know, it's dependent on the year, and I would say for the longest stretch of time, it's been Jeff. You know, being in the same shop, him being so open and willing to show me the ropes, there's a lot to learn. And Jeff showed me the ropes. And racing against him, and he was my hero. He's the guy I feel that opened up the door for myself, Tony Stewart even, Casey Kane. You think of open wheel drivers, dirt drivers, and especially West Coast drivers. Jeff opened that door for all of us. So to have this guy, and the only die-cast car I bought was a Jeff Gordon 24 car.
Wow,
so
that's perfect.
You know, to have that opportunity to race for him was so cool. And then all the years that we fought.
The 48 is testing my patience, I can tell you that. It takes a lot to make me mad, and I'm pissed.
For position, fought for championships against one another. He would be the most consistent one there.
And here he comes, champion for the 6th time. It's Jimmie Johnson.
2013 Chiefs meet. Yes! Thank you, guys.
You're on the cusp of joining Petty, Earnhardt. How much do you think about that?
You know, it's in my mind. It's a very popular question, and I get it. But, you know, through the years, and I've expressed this before, you know, I've never raced to chase a stat or a goal or to be the best of. I've always raced because it's been me, it's my identity, it's what I've done since I was a kid, it's what I'm passionate about, it's what I love. And I still have that same thing going on inside of me. It's not chasing 7, although it would be the coolest thing in the world to get. I'm motivated for other reasons.
I had a difficult time sleeping at times during my career, particularly the night before the race. Anything keep you awake at night?
You know, I would say that in, again, that 04, 05, 06 time frame, I had a really tough time sleeping. And I would lay awake frustrated with opportunity that passed me up. And then 06, I wasn't sure how many chances I would have at a championship. You know, if you're in the sport long enough, you're lucky and thankful to have a shot or two at a championship. And I just had 2 slip away, and I'm in 06. I'm like, this can't slide away from me. But in last year, in 13 racing for the championship, I don't know if it was because of all the training, but I didn't lose any sleep any of the nights. I felt prepared. I knew I was prepared. I knew the team was. We had momentum on our side. Like, there was a lot of things rolling in the right direction, and man, I felt great.
So we got a curveball, if you will. The point system's changing again. What's interesting is that I looked at the numbers under the premise that you have to be one of the 4 best drivers at the 9th race, end of the 9th race, to go into the championship run. Well, you've done that 9 out of 12 seasons. So this new system, I think, might favor you, actually.
I agree. I mean, especially the years we've won championships, we've won a lot of races, and we win in the chase. And there isn't another team that has, you know, the amount of victories that we do in the chase. So hopefully all of that still stays in play, and we can find ourselves in a nice spot going into Homestead. And most importantly, you've got to win to move on. Yeah. And I think that'll resonate well with the fans. And as long as there are butts in the seats and eyeballs on television and return on investment for our sponsors, you know, that's the most important thing for our sport.
I sleep much better now, and I spend more time in Maine, and the North Woods of Maine's real dark, so I sleep well. And I raced 1 race with Richard, my hero growing up. I raced several years against Dale, and I competed against you for a few years later in life. So in one of my deep sleeps, I have a great dream. It was at New Hampshire Speedway, a match race between you, Richard, and Dale. Yeah, it was, you want to know how it ended?
Please.
Well, how do you think it ended?
Well, I know how I want it to end. Ran away with the show, and off it went, and sailed off into the sunset.
You were leading going into turn 3 at New Hampshire, and Richard was running 3rd and sort of sizing things up like he did in the 79 Daytona 500. I'm going to wait till you win the 7th title, and I'll tell you how it ended, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the tease, Ricky. I want to know how the dream ended, too. Hey, by the way, here's some numbers. Johnson won his 6th championship in his 12th full season, 3 fewer than both Petty and Earnhardt. Petty was 42 at the time of his 7th title. Earnhardt was 43. Johnson will turn 39 this September, giving him plenty of time to catch up with those legends. And speaking of legends and the king, it appears Richard Petty is not a big fan of Danica Patrick, at least not as a driver. Asked at a trade show in Toronto over the weekend if he thought Patrick could win a Sprint Cup race, Petty didn't hold back. He said only if everyone else stayed home. He then added if she'd have been a male, nobody would ever know if she'd even showed up at the racetrack. This is a female deal that's driving her. There's nothing wrong with that because that's good PR for me. More fans come out. People are more interested in it. She has helped to draw attention to the sport, which helps everybody in the sport. Of course, we're going to ask the king about these very remarks when he visits us here in our ESPN studios next Monday, February 17th. Still to come. 7 isn't the only number generating discussion this year. Hear how Austin Dillon feels about bringing the 3 car back to the Sprint Cup Series. And with the chase changes, what can we expect to see this fall? Everyone has an opinion. Hear what our roundtable has to say when we return to NASCAR Now.
Welcome back to NASCAR Now, presented by AutoZone.
Well, I really like the eliminations process. It adds more stress, and I think it gives us a lot to think about and talk about during the week, as far as the pressure to perform and the attention of our fans, media, etc. So I think it's a great thing for the sport and provides like I said, a compelling storyline even during the race as well. So eliminations I think are great.
It'll be a lot of pressure, it'll be very intense to be in that situation. The elimination factor always there over your shoulder, but that's what other professional athletes face in those situations. So it only makes sense that it should be that way for us.
It will be exciting. I don't know if it'll be right, wrong, fair, unfair, who will be upset, but it'll be a hell of an event.
That gives you a sense of what the drivers are thinking about the chase changes, and essentially the focus is now on wins. The top 16 winners after 26 races get in, with points coming as a tiebreaker. Unless the points leader hasn't won after 26 races, then they'll get in as the 16th driver, possibly knocking out a winner. And if you're curious, the 4 drivers running for the title at Homestead last year in this system would have been Johnson, Gordon, Earnhardt, and Harvick. No Matt Kenseth. Now, everyone is talking about this, including our roundtable.
As we continue our roundtable discussion with DJ, Andy, and Ricky about all the changes for the 2014 season, we've talked about the changes to the cars. We talked about the new qualifying system. Now the big one, the change in the way the champion is determined with the added drivers in the chase, the elimination races, and the winner-take-all finale. Your reaction to these changes is what?
Well, I like the idea and the concept of where we're going with this, expanding the field to 16. Then we're going to have an elimination process as we go through those last 10 races. I think this is all great ideas. If I have any issue, it's that we're going to determine the champion in one race, the final race, through 4 drivers and teams, but they don't have to win that race. I would have liked to have seen something along that line that you take those 4 with their points, and whoever comes out of there with the most points, then they would be the champion. But if any one of those 4 should win the race, then they would win the championship with maybe the 4th place driver, and he could leapfrog. Still may not have as many points, but he would be the champion by winning that last race. But very seldom has it ever gone down to where you had to win that last race to win the championship anyway. So it's not like that has to happen. It did happen the other year with Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards. You had to win to be the champion. But I like the idea and the concept. I think it's going to add a whole nother element. And these teams are going to have to adjust to how they think about starting at race 10.
You say you like it? I don't like it. I love it. I love it. I think this is the best thing that they could ever come up with for our sport. I mean, it's going to put all the emphasis on winning to get there, and to stay in the chase. You're going to have to run good enough to win probably a lot of races to stay in it. And then you get to the last race, and I know you may not have to win that one, but it's a race within a race. You got 4 guys. They're going to line those guys up at Homestead, and they're going to say, okay, guys, when y'all come back, this line right here, whoever gets to that line first is our champion. And I think that is going to create so much drama and anticipation and bring a lot of new eyes to our sport. I love it.
I'm sort of dominated by how the teams and drivers are going to react to one another, or how they're going to play that last game, that last race. Because typically a team will say, as long as we go into the last race and take care of business, we're going to be champions. But this is different. This is an opportunity for distraction. This is a scenario, I think, where teams say, or where teams could get preoccupied, where the other 3 teams are running during the course of the event. And because whoever finishes highest wins the championship. So it's not about calculating points. It's about finishing ahead of those other 3 drivers. And boy, it should be entertaining.
Yeah. NASCAR's changed the system to determine the champion many, many times over the years. And the end result is the cream rises, and the best drivers end up competing for the championship, no matter what the system is. I have no doubt we're going to see that come the end of this chase in 2014. The real question is just how fun that last race will end up being and who ends up picking up the big trophy.
Still ahead, the iconic number 3 is returning to the Sprint Cup Series, while Austin Dillon is showing remarkable poise as he returns the Intimidator's number.
NASCAR Now is presented by AutoZone. For the auto parts, accessories, and advice you need, get in the zone. AutoZone. Lug Notes is brought to you by Viagra.
Time now to catch you up on some lug notes. Rapper 50 Cent formed a partnership with Swan Racing to put his SMS audio line on their 2 cars driven in 2014 by Parker Kligerman and Cole Witt. Martin Truex Jr. will drive the 78 for Furniture Row Racing this season, moving over from Michael Waltrip Racing. And for the first time since the tragic 2001 Daytona 500, the 3 car will return to Sprint Cup competition as Austin Dillon takes over the number made famous by Dale Earnhardt.
It's very special. I know we've talked about it a lot since December, and I'm just looking forward to getting to Sunday and having that first time to climb in it and go after a race. As soon as the first lap gets through, I think that I'll be settled in and ready for a long season.
I've had people to talk about they haven't been to a race, but they're going to come back now to see the 3. It's going to be a special day. It'll be emotional for a lot of folks, for sure. But at the end of the day, I know Dale's up there smiling down saying this is what we really wanted and what we talked about.
There are some interesting stats revolving around the 3 car. It's 197 Cup Series races all time, the 3rd most of any car number. With 3 more wins, the 3 will join the 11 and the 43 as the only numbers with at least 100 Cup wins. But Earnhardt isn't the only driver to win in the 3. Junior Johnson, Buck Baker, Fireball Roberts, and David Pearson are among the 12 drivers who have won in the 3 car. That does it for us tonight. It's great to have you back with us. Looking forward to the upcoming season and all the drama that comes with it. Just under 2 weeks remain before we see the first green flag, and we'll continue counting down the days to the Daytona 500 when we return on Tuesday night. We'll see you then, folks. Jimmie Johnson is going to be a guy we'll talk about a lot this year.